Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about how not to kill your plants. And I just want to say before we start that I am not a plant expert. I am not claiming to be. I just have a passion for plants, and these are just things that I have learned that help me care for my own plants. So I have learned a very, very important thing to do is to research about the plant that you're planning on bringing into your home. I made the mistake of not doing that when I first got a succulent, and I killed that succulent. I talked about it in a propagation video. Basically, I didn't do my research on that plant, and I didn't put it in a bright environment, which I would have learned if I actually did the research for it. Long story short, I killed the plant, and ever since then, I did so much research on every single plant that I brought into my place, not wanting to kill it again. So in researching, I look for the light needs, the humidity needs, the soil needs, and fertilization. Just make sure that your home is a good environment for that specific plant. My second tip is about choosing the best plant at the store, and that may seem very obvious to people, but I inspect the plant from top to bottom. Sometimes I'll even take out my phone flashlight and I'll stand there and inspect the plant, like all of the leaves it has, under the leaves and the stems, the soil, just making sure that there's no pests, signs of disease, and mold. Also on that note is that some stores have amazing plant return policies. Stores like Home Depot, if you hold onto your receipt, they have like a 1-year guarantee that if you kill the plant within a year, you can bring it back. And I haven't taken advantage of that, and I hope I don't have to, but I just wanted to put it out there that they do have that policy, or at least at Home Depot is in my area. Another thing that I look for when I'm choosing a plant is whether the plant has new leaves or leaves that are about to unfurl, because that usually just means that the plant is happy and healthy. Tip number 3 is to let your plant acclimate to your home. Your environment is very different from the place that the plant was previously living in, and if it came from a nursery, it could have been in the most ideal situation ever in a greenhouse. So when you bring it home, assign a spot for it based on the light requirements and all of that. Once you bring it home, just try to keep it in that spot that you have assigned for it and let it acclimate to the environment before you start moving it all around, because it's already going to be stressed from changing locations of the nursery to your home. That doesn't mean that you can't move it to the sink to water it. I'm just saying after that, try to put it back in that spot. Also, with the plant being stressed out from being in a different environment, it may lose a few leaves, and don't feel bad about that. At first, I thought I was being a horrible plant parent by losing a couple leaves when I first brought it home, but that's pretty normal for a plant as long as the whole thing's not dying off. Tip number 4 is about the type of water that you use for your plant, and some plants are more finicky than others, such as a calathea. I use filtered water that I put in a jug, and I at least put it overnight before I use it on my plants, and I just filter using a Brita filter. Tip number 5 is to not overwater your plants. This is probably one of the top reasons why people actually kill plants. So when you first buy a plant, you're probably so excited about that plant and you want to be a great plant parent and water it every single day, but most plants don't need that. So definitely do your research on that. Drainage holes are very important for plants to prevent root rot. A lot of terracotta pots that you'll find will have drainage holes at the bottom. A lot of decorative potters will not have drainage holes, so in that case I normally leave it in a nursery pot in order to pull it out whenever I need to water it. I will thoroughly water my plants through just pouring the water in and letting it drain out, and I will just leave it in the sink for a little bit until it stops draining out. If you have a terracotta pot, they are very porous. The soil will be able to dry out from the sides as well. So that's also why I like terracotta pots a lot. And if you think terracotta pots are boring, you can just paint them like I did this one. What I was doing for a long time was just using my finger to stick it in the soil. I wouldn't just look at the soil to determine whether or not it needs to be watered, because sometimes it just looks dry on top, but right under it, it's still wet. So stick your finger in to the second notch and actually feel the soil and make sure that it's not still wet before you water it again. The finger check had worked just fine for me. I was able to keep all of my plants happy and healthy, but what I do in the mornings is, because when I check my plants in the morning, that's when I'm doing other things like making coffee and I'm multitasking, and I don't want to keep contaminating my finger while I'm doing all these other things. So a few weeks ago, I actually got a moisture meter. This is what a moisture meter looks like. Just stick it in the soil. This meter right here will tell you whether it's still dry or moist. I got this at Lowe's for like $8 or $9, and I've also seen the same thing at Home Depot. So I guess most hardware stores will have it. I've I've seen it in nurseries for more expensive, so you probably just want to go to a hardware store. There are instructions on the back listing the type of plant and when to water it again based on the number that the meter reads, but I don't actually use that. I just look at the meter itself and see whether or not it's dry or moist. This one also can measure light and pH, but I only use it for the moisture. Another great thing about this is that you can aerate the soil when you're checking as well. And what I would recommend is don't just stick it in there and see it's like, okay, it says dry, I'm gonna water it right away. I check in multiple places, and that also aerates it as well, so it's kind of a win-win. I don't say this is completely necessary, but it definitely has made my life easier. I would keep track of the last time you watered a plant, the last time you fertilized, the last time you repotted the plant. It's just very helpful to see this pattern of I watered this plant 10 days ago and then I have to water it again. So you basically have this range of when you should be checking your plant if you don't want to be checking it every day, because if you get a lot more plants, that can take you a lot of time. Another thing that has helped me is misting my plants. This is just a beautiful mister I got from Urban Outfitters a while back. In the beginning, I wasn't misting my plants and I noticed some browning of the edges of some of my leaves. Based on my research, I had already put it in the right type of light and everything like that. I just noticed a really big difference when I started misting my plants and I wasn't seeing those browning edges anymore. A lot of people will say that misting your plants will just increase the humidity for about 15 minutes, but I have noticed a big difference in how my leaves actually look when I mist my plants. And I don't mist every single one of my plants. It's just based on the requirements. Like I wouldn't be misting a snake plant that I have in front of me or cacti, succulents. So again, this is where the research comes in. So my last tip is to not be too hard on yourself. It's all a learning experience. This is something I struggle with as well because I just want to be the best plant parent that I can be. When my plants are sad, I'm sad too, hence the calathea situation that I had going on, but that plant is doing better. I am still troubleshooting some things, so sometimes it's just trial and error to figure out what is going on with your plant. If you did all the research that you can and you're doing everything to the T, sometimes it still might not be working out. What helps with that is that the plant community on social media is very helpful. I did post on my Instagram about my calathea and people were giving me advice about that, so I love the plant community on Instagram and social media in general. And I think this video is long enough, so those are all of the tips that I have. This is what has worked for me to care for my plants. If I did leave anything out, you can just leave it down in the comments below. That's it. Thanks for watching. Bye!